Please be seated. We gather to remember the little things that made a special place in our hearts. To remember those happy times when we laughed, and those times when our hearts broke as one. For who could put a price on memories? We gather to share the pain, to hurt when you hurt, without presuming that our pain is the same. To cry when you cry, and not to try to hide or avoid our tears. For tears are memories in motion. We gather to give the gift of grief, to stand beside you in silence and not to be uncomfortable with your tears, to allow you the gift of mourning this loss and not to lose patience. For grief is nature's way of healing a broken heart. Good morning and welcome again. Remember and celebrate the lives of Aubrey Desmond de Wet and Trevor Albert Francke. It is our hope that every part of this service will honor a life lived amongst us. We come here this morning with full hearts and numb minds, failing to understand why these two beautiful lives were taken what we would deem to be whilst they're still in the prime of their life. There are really no words to express the mixture of feelings that surrounds each person here. Sadness for ourselves because the joy for the life on earth is now complete and there are other mountains out there for them to climb, goals to embrace. Gratefulness that these lives of inspiration was part of this earth for 54 and 60 years respectively, to guide, to teach, and to love, and privileged that we were a part of it. One can truly measure a man from his friends, and today we have a number of distinguished speakers with us to offer their remembrances of both Aubrey and Trevor. They include the Chief Director of Districts, Mr. Alan Meyer, Circuit Managers Mrs. Valdila Chatia and Tandi Jafter, past and present Directors of E-Learning Dr. Osman Sadiq and Clinton Walker. Unfortunately, both gentlemen could not make it today, but they do have representatives. Clinton Walker will be represented by Christelle Barkhuizen, and she is a Chief Education Specialist for E-Learning and Head Office. And then we have the Head of Curriculum, Charmaine Peterson, and Principals, Mr. Meyer and Mr. Klaassen. I do thank you all, those that I've mentioned, for coming this morning to pay a tribute to these wonderful men. And those of you that have actually made the time to be physically present here, as you're sitting here, and those who have made time that's listening and watching from afar, we do appreciate and are thankful that you've given time out or taken time out from your busy schedule. We understand that the COVID regulations prevented us from having this wall packed, which it would have been if we did not have those regulations. So before we get to the actual program, or no, we're going to start with the actual program, but before I call on those people to give their tributes, I would ask the director to come to the podium, the director of INSET, Mr. Granville Stander, to welcome you to the house. Thank you.
Dear colleagues and special guests, a warm welcome to you all. I'd also wish to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Meyer, the district officials who are here representing the various components in the district, and our principals present, and all connected via the live stream connection. Many schools who knew and who worked with, and the privilege of working with Mr. DeWet and with Trevor would certainly be connected with us. Allow me to express a very special and warm welcome to Lisa. I know Blake is on his way, and who is the daughter of Mr. Aubrey DeWet, and Blake, the son-in-law, and also to the representatives of Trevor. Kathy, I would imagine, is connected to us at this point in time. Trevor and Aubrey were not just colleagues, they were part of a very close-knit MZ family. While we prayed for their full recovery, it was not to be. Their passing, just days apart, came as a huge shock to all in the education fraternity. So we share your immense sense of loss. We appreciate that you are able to join us, Lisa, to the professional lives of your dad and of Trevor. Today, while we are paying a special tribute to Trevor and Aubrey, we will take this opportunity to remember all in the district who have recently lost their lives. I will also take this opportunity to convey a few messages of support. Trevor was a gentle soul whose life's purpose was to share his knowledge and the vision that he had to ensure that every learner is digitally savvy and future ready. This excited him, and it was a vision that him and I shared. Trevor and I enjoyed long conversations, sharing exciting plans for the district. Trevor just recently took up the challenge of heading up a district innovation team tasked to advance e-learning in our schools. Some of these plans just started to gain traction, but we will ensure that ultimately it blossoms beautifully. There are many wonderful accounts of Trevor's character on social media, Facebook, and even in the media. But I suppose the most remarkable account for me of the essence of Trevor was the one of one of his past pupils who testified about the huge role that Trevor had in turning his life around. Trevor loved his work in our schools. He understood his calling as a teacher, and he enjoyed working with teachers to ensure that they understood their role in the lives of children. From what we heard on Saturday, Kathy, Trevor loved you dearly, and his faith, and his work in the church, and his good character certainly manifested in his interactions with all of us. He leaves a huge void in the district. Lisa, when I received the news that I had to take up the role as district director in 2018, my first big task was to find someone to replace me in the circuit. It had to be someone that was better than me. Unfortunately, in Metro South, I am spoiled for choice. There are many who could do that role. But there was one man who ultimately stood out, and it was your dad. Not only for his knowledge and his experience in education, but also for his positive attitude and his fatherly, nurturing character. He lived for his schools and loved his work with the children. And very often, not just with the teachers and with SMTs, but directly with the children. I heard just as recently as yesterday in conversation with some colleagues in the curriculum component about how your dad, as a circuit manager, did what we refer to as huisbesoek. Not many principals still do huisbesoek today, but he did. This is next level stewardship as far as I'm concerned. There was one particular boy at one of our schools who was quite a challenge. And I still see this youngster in front of me because when I accompanied him on a day, your dad, I could see the connection that he had with this young boy and the special interest he took in the well-being of this one child. As is evident from the endless tributes of ex-pupils, this was your dad's character, and this attests to your dad's character. When I met with you and your mom on Friday morning, we tried to think of any of your dad's flaws, and much like the servant who held the service on Sunday also alluded, there was very little that one could say wrong about your dad. I too couldn't find one. Maybe if I must scratch out, I'm going to say that whenever I had a meeting with Aubrey, I would always need to cater extra 20 minutes, because Aubrey liked to talk, and Aubrey liked to give you the full story, and he never left out any detail. But I think if any flaw that he would have, it would be his soft, huge heart. Aubrey tried to make everything possible to the best of his ability for anybody who knew him and who he could help. There was always a solution to everything. You know, if you threw lemon juice or lemons at him, he would throw lemonade back at you. You know, he turned the difficult situation into something positive. When we had to deal with difficult issues at schools, and I accompanied him on one or two occasions to deal with an issue, he exemplified diplomacy. He was often the softer voice between the two of us. And so I've also learned one or two things from your dad. Lisa, your dad managed a circuit of 27 schools, including 2 special schools, with a learner enrollment of 23,000 children. So if you thought you and Jason and Erin were the only ones and the grandchildren, then his heart was much bigger than that, and I'm sure you understood that. His motto appended to his email signature was a saying from Dr. Kevin Maxwell. Our job is to teach the students we have, not the ones we'd like to have, not the ones we used to have, those we have right now, all of them. And that, in a nutshell, was his philosophy as he worked in his schools. Mrs. Berenice Daniels, Director of Special Needs Education, writes, Mr. DeWet played a pioneering role in making Fairview Primary an inclusive school more than a decade ago, before there were even officially full-service inclusive schools. The school admitted a child with Down syndrome who was a sibling of a learner at the school. Again, not the ones we'd like to have, not those we used to have, those we have right now, all of them. Aubrey loved sport, and as we heard, was a phys ed teacher. I saw an image of him on the, I don't know what's crossbars, whatever, in his younger days, and he had quite a good physique, and he loved playing sport. His love for sport led him to be part also of the District Sports School, a District South School Sport Organization, which is an organization in the district who shares your dad's passion for developing and advancing sport in the district. And I'd like to read a brief message of support from them. Aubrey DeWet was a member of the District South School Sports Organization. Mr. DeWet availed himself to serve on the EXCO of the DSSO when it was formally established, and he was still the principal of Fairview Primary. It became immediately clear that he had a great passion for school sport, a love for learners, love for his school, and improving school sport. He could remember every athlete that the school produced. As a treasurer, he contributed greatly to developing an operational plan. When he became the circuit manager, his contributions, as busy as his schedule was, actually increased, and we never felt that his new role made him different. Our meetings with him were always productive, and we knew that we had someone with us who would fight to ensure our planned success. The loss we feel is profound, and it is only right that once COVID is vanquished, that we ensure that the plans we made together become a successful reality. We mourn his loss and honour his memory. Mr. Matthew Blau, on behalf of the DSSO. We knew that he's second to his family, and of late Metro South Education District and his work in the district, Fairview Primary was his other love. Often I would drive down Clip Road over weekends and I'd see your dad's car, the white Merc, parked here. And he spent many hours working in the school and making and turning the school into the great school it is. He was very proud when he eventually got the new school building, and hence our choice to have the memorial here today. At his memorial service on Saturday, we also heard how Aubrey held his church leaders in high esteem. As far as the workplace is concerned, I can attest to this too. It was most interesting to note that both Aubrey and Trevor lived God-fearing lives and were ministers or elders in their respective churches. They lived exemplary lives, and their good character endeared them to all they interacted with. I also now, when chatting to the head of education, he asked that he can write something that I also read to you, and I will do that now, and he does apologize for not being able to be here today. Dear colleagues, it is with sadness that I wish to convey my personal and the WCD's heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of Trevor Francke and Aubrey DeWitt. These two colleagues were widely loved and respected, not only in Metro South, but across the WCD. All who knew them attested to this fact. Trevor had served education for many years, from the days of Kanya and recently as an e-learning advisor in South. His contribution to the development of e-learning was immense. So many people that I had spoken to referred to him as a gentle giant, always friendly, always willing to help. His knowledge and experience in the e-learning environment made him sought after, and he will be difficult to replace. It was my privilege to have known Trevor over many years. Aubrey was similarly hugely respected. He was an excellent principal and was instrumental in raising the purpose, profile and functionality of Fairview Primary School in Grassy Park. The school building stands as a monument to his leadership. Colleagues attest to the fact that he never needed to raise his voice, led by example, and had an indelible impact on the broader school community, instilling pride, dignity in the community. Lately, Aubrey served as a circuit manager, and through his experience of leading a wonderful school, was highly respected, and his advice and support to schools, principals, staffs, and SGBs was always heeded. His knowledge, experience, and the gentle demeanor will always remain with me. It was a huge privilege for me to have known Aubrey as an excellent principal and respected colleague. Ladies and gentlemen, it is sad that in this difficult time, we are faced with the reality of taking leave of so many people, teachers and officials. It is doubly sad when we need to say farewell to colleagues of this caliber. We celebrate their lives and their commitment to education, to the education of our children. We thank them for their contribution to inspiring children and helping schools become places that children enter to learn, truly enter to learn. We express our condolences to all who will miss Trevor and Aubrey. The WCD mourns their passing and will miss them. May their souls rest in peace. Dear Lisa and Blake, welcome. And to Kathy, where you are connected, we were indeed privileged as a district to have shared your dad and your husband with you. We will certainly miss them both. Our prayers will continue to be with you all. May their good souls rest in peace. Thank you.
Next item on the program is the lighting of the candles, and I've asked Granville to stay here. Now, please ask Alan Meyer and Tandy Jafter to join in and lighting the candles. As you've heard from the head of education, Aubrey and Trevor were well known for the work they've done, not only in Metro South, but in the province. And we have Mr. Alan Meyer, who's going to give us a message of support on his own behalf, because he knew Aubrey as well as on behalf of the Western Cape Education Department. Now, Alan Meyer has come through the ranks. He's been a director of so many components. He's been a director of the public service and administration in 2009. He was an acting chief director for corporate services in 2013. He's been a district director of North and a district director of Central Karoo. His current portfolio that he holds since 2017 is the chief director of districts. And districts can be so fortunate to have the passionate man at the helm that's overseeing and mentoring the district directors. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, and really thank you to Granville and the staff at Metro South for affording me the opportunity to come and share a few words with the family and also the colleagues that Aubrey and Trevor leaves behind. Now, unbeknown to many people, Trevor and I were at school together. He was in Standard 6 and I was in grade 12 at the time at Livingston, and I was reminded that by Heather van Ster, who was with him at school as well so many years ago out at Livingston. And you know, when Trevor passed, I got a message from Brent Walters, our new head of Department of Education. He said, "Hey, this is a Livingston boy. I know him well." I said, "Well, I know him too." And I know him for the fact that, you know, he had an older sister who was in my class, Denise. And for the first time, Denise and I touched base, you know, with the passing of Trevor. And she asked me, "What do you remember of him?" And I said, "Well, I remember him coming to be a lass at our classroom every day to come and check up on you and to see that you were okay. Meanwhile, he was the younger one at the school." It was his protective nature, I think, you know, of his sister, that he wanted to come and pop around at our grade 12 club, because we were now the seniors at the school, you know. And so he came to come and check up on her and see that she was okay. And I think it's something that he carried through with him throughout his career. In the way he taught at Grassy Park High School, the people speak extremely highly of his input and contribution in education as a teacher first and foremost. And I think he passed away as a teacher as well. He was still a teacher at heart in wanting to drive innovation and creativity within our schools. And he lived the value of integrity. Because whatever he promised at any platform where he spoke, or to any group he spoke to, or any teacher he spoke to, he came back and said, "Well, this is what I can still do, and this is what I can't do." And it's with that kind of integrity that he conducted himself until the end. It is extremely difficult to always say, you know, goodbye to people. It's a very difficult task. But it is one, unfortunately, during this time that we have almost become accustomed to. We've almost become used to, you know, we're going to do a memorial, okay, it's another drive-by we're going to do. But for the family that is left behind, it leaves a massive void, which our words of comfort sometimes do not always fill completely. But at least it makes the family understand how highly we regarded the colleague that has passed on. And so we say to Trevor and to his family as well, thank you for his loyal service to our children of this province. Because whatever he did was for the betterment of the children of this province. And I'm always reminded of the fact that if we do what we do for others in service and in stewardship, it is blessed what we do. And through his work, Trevor has always exemplified what that value that he carried with him for the betterment of children in this province. I taught at Fairmount High School across the road, and Trevor is here as my ex-principal. He was my boss for a very long time there, and I think it's because of him as where I'm standing here today. So thanks, Trevor. So Aubrey and myself were across the road from each other, so we used to watch each other. And he was at Stephen Road, and I became principal. And then he was principal here already, and I was principal at Perryvale Primary down the road. Before that, I was at Lotus Primary as a deputy principal, and we used to watch each other. And for my role as a new principal coming into being a principal and taking up leadership at the school, you look to people that are better than you to see where do you learn from those that are doing exceptionally well. So my eyes always fell on particularly on your father here at the school, he said. And so we know each other for a long time. Somebody put on Facebook, I think it was Famous Cussing, put a message saying, the Weinberg Grassy Park cluster of sport, and Aubrey will be missed. And I said, I always remember him in this white pants, with a clipboard on his hand, with a whistle around his neck, and he was shouting some instruction on the sports field. That was his nature. And I think the priest on Saturday captured it so vividly for all of us, to say that he was there to lead the children from the unknown to the known. And so many of these learners that came through his hands over the years didn't know what their athletic prowess were. They never knew what their academic abilities were. He brought it out of them. And so when I came here to this school in 2018, and Trevor will tell you, on the first day of school in 2018, I visited him, and then I came over and I visited Aubrey at this school, and I was at the school in Lavendale on the same morning where I went with the minister to open the school here there as well. And Aubrey and I stood outside in the quad, and I was shocked. Because when I got here, the kids were in class. It was after 9. There was this little hum in the school, but the school was functioning. And he said to me, "You want to come to the office?" I said, "No, man, I don't like the office. Let us take a walk around the school." So we walked around the school. We popped in at a couple of classes, and the kids were busy. It was the first day of the school year, and I just left Andre Lamprecht. You may know him. He was the principal at the school I went to earlier in the morning, where there was still a bit of parents that were unsure and children that were unsure about being at school. And I came here, everything was in order. There was nothing here that said to me it was the first day of the term, and this first day of the new school year, because the kids, even in grade 1, were into it already. But prior to that day that I came here, Aubrey was here with his staff and with his management team for a few weeks already, preparing the ground for those learners to arrive here on that day. And then before I left, the two of us stood outside of this hall and we spoke. And I asked him, "Aubrey, what are you going to do? What is your path of where you want to go?" And he said to me, "I'm going to retire here." And I said, "Why are you going to retire here? You've got so much knowledge, so much experience, so much expertise that you can share that with others as well." And he said to me, "Man, I'm happy where I am. Things are working well. I've got an excellent staff. I've got learners here, and I've got parents who still come in here to come and talk to me about the children that pass through the school. And so I love what I'm doing here." And I said to him, "Aubrey, we'll talk again." And we said our farewells and we left. And as Granville indicated, when the possibility of us getting somebody to act in Granville's place as a circuit manager, Granville gave me 3 names, and I said to him, "I'm stuck on that name. Let's ask Aubrey." We asked Aubrey, and fortunately for us, the governing body of the school agreed, and we appointed him. Now, some people, you can compare it to like a little motorbike. You need to push it until it starts and it gets going, right? The others you have to kick start. You push down the pedal and it starts going. Aubrey started on his own. It was like just this energy that came in to his new role as a circuit manager, that he literally, and I'm not saying this, just because it's his memorial. I'm saying it, I would have said it at any other platform. That when Aubrey started in his role as a circuit manager, he lived the role of a circuit manager. He lived the role of mentoring principals, supporting, coaching, all of those things in what he was doing on a daily basis. He lived it not only during the normal working hours, because when Aubrey his wife would probably attest, And late at night, I'll give Aubrey a call and say, hey, how's it going? Is everything okay? You need anything? Can I assist anywhere? Or whatever. And yes, Mr. Mayor, can we talk about this thing quickly? And can we add this thing and add this thing? And the call would go for much longer. But when we were done, I was always assured that our schools are getting the best service from somebody who is committed to the core to the children of this province. Committed to the core. There wasn't an opportunity, a time, at any point that I can remember that Aubrey said, no, he doesn't feel like doing this thing. It was always, okay, so how do we take it to the next level? How do I improve on this thing? How do I make it better? How do I get to more people to do what I do? So it's with great sadness that one hears of his passing. It struck a chord with me on the Friday before his passing. I sent a message to the circuit managers, they will remember. I said, can we please pray for Aubrey? And it was Johannes McTon, another circuit manager, an ex-circuit manager in Malmesbury. And I also said for Devendra Rampasad, who was also positive at the time. Can we pray for the 3 colleagues? And people phoned me. They said, hey, why are you putting this message on? But fortunately for me, I have a good friend, Tracy Beckett, Tennyson, who was keeping me, sort of advised on the side from messages that your mom was sharing with us. And I said, guys, let's keep Aubrey in our prayers. And then Sunday morning, I got the message, it's looking a little bit better. And I felt good. And I thought, hey, we're on the road now, we're going to get through this thing. And then the message comes that early that morning, Aubrey has passed. It literally kicks your feet out under you, and it makes you ask yourself, and it forces you to put a little bit more perspective in what you do in life. And so I take the lesson from Aubrey as a committed person to education in this province. I take the lesson from him who tirelessly strove for the betterment of education within the Grassy Park, Lotus River, and even broader communities. I take the lesson of his commitment to his principles, where I called him one morning and said, I'm here at the school in Mitchell's Plain, can you pop in? There's an issue here. And he said, I'll be there now. And how that Gigi got there that quickly, I will not ask the traffic department if there are fines or anything. But it wasn't long he was there. So I take that from him. And there are so many other lessons I can take from him over my years of experience of watching Aubrey, seeing him active within our communities, and the role that he came to play in the district as a circuit manager. Please understand, your father was well loved. Not only by us who are here today, but by so many other people. I watched the live stream on Saturday. I think at one point it was over 1,400 people that were watching the live stream of your dad's funeral. And that even in itself was a small number of people that were posting messages on Facebook and all over the show. And ex-students who sent me messages saying, did you hear about Mr. DeWet? Students of mine that were at Fairmount. So he was well loved. Besides being well loved, he was respected for his role, because he cared about people. He lived our values as an organization that we've got, we've got these core values that we put up. And some people say, no, but it's up. And other people live it through their example. They live those values in the way in which they interact with people on a regular basis. And so that is how I choose to remember your dad. That is how I choose to remember Trevor Francke as well. They were both innovators. They were both creatively driven to provide better opportunities for children in this province. So we don't say goodbye today. We say we will see them again. We want you to be assured that as you mourn, we mourn too. Because you've lost a father, and we can't sometimes understand that. But we've lost a colleague who we have the greatest respect for. We've always, and no matter where we go, we will talk about him highly. His chair will be empty in the district management teams when I visit there to have these conversations. But I want to assure you that that is the level at which we hold your father as well as Trevor. Thank you for being here this morning, colleagues. Thank you for letting the family know that you are there and you are here to support them going forward. It's going to be difficult for them. We all know the sense of loss that we feel when a family member passes on. Let us continue to be the humans that we are. That we will continue to support the families, that we will let them know on those days when sometimes it may seem insignificant to you, but to drop a call to the family to say, how are you doing? Are you okay? We're still around here if you need to talk. It means a lot to the family. And I want to assure you that that is what we will continue to do. Thank you very much again to Granville and the team for the opportunity. I sincerely appreciate it because, as I've indicated, these two individuals, in two very different ways, has impacted on me and made me be able to do what I do slightly better. And hopefully, when we see each other somewhere in another time and space, that it will be a joyous time to connect with each other again and say, well, this is what I've done, this is what you've done. I've been able to take it a little bit further. And I think that is the value that we want to remember them with. So thank you very much, and all the best to you and your mother, as well as your other siblings as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those words. Kind words and beautiful words. And we feel your support within the district and the family as well. We're going to start with the tributes, and the first person to give a tribute will be Mrs. Chatia. Mrs. Chatia was Mr. De Wet's circuit manager for many a year. She'll tell you for how many years she was his circuit manager. She joined the district in 2005, took up the role as the link team coordinator in 2006, and when the circuit teams were formed in 2008, she took up the role as circuit team manager. And when we restructured in about 3 years ago, it was 2014, she then took up the role as the circuit manager of Circuit 3, where she was also, at the time, for a short space, his circuit manager. So I call on Mrs. Valdila Chatia.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Maweli. All honored guests, Lisa and Blake, I'm sure your mom and Erin and Jackson, they're all watching. To Kathy, I'm sure you are listening. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for being here this morning. It means a lot. To the family and to all of us, and to Estelle from head office, thank you for being here. To Mr. Mayor, Principal of Fairview, and to the staff, Mr. Stander and all the Metropole South colleagues who are present, all principals who are present, friends of Aubrey. It's very difficult, and the words that Granville shared and Mr. Mayor shared and what we saw on Facebook and the hundreds of messages we received really bears testimony to the father you had. As Mr. Stanley indicated, we acknowledging two of our colleagues, Trevor and Aubrey, and we also do remember Tyron Humphreys, who passed away at the end of last year, and all family members present here, colleagues who have lost family members due to COVID. We hold you all in our prayers, and in Islam we say, Inna ilahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. From God we come, and to God is our return. And we can only pray for the families that there must be contentment and acceptance in their heart, and God must grant them strength, and that our colleagues are blessed with the good deeds, and that they have a beautiful seat in paradise. Wonderful colleagues, both colleagues, men of faith, as the director has indicated. Lisa, as friends of Aubrey, we know him as a person who was very dedicated, committed, passionate about his work. He puts in many long hours. Working a Saturday or a Sunday was nothing to Aubrey. I know in 2008, when I became the circuit manager of Circuit 3, and Aubrey was in my circuit, all the Grassy Park schools up to Lotus, Strandfontein was in Circuit 3. Mr. Klaassen would remember, we would often have development sessions, and your father would be at the forefront. School readiness, we would share his templates, and whatever principals needed, we would just share and help. We appointed him as a caretaker principal at one of the schools at Stephen Road. I think it was 2012. And he was just wonderful. We had challenges at the school, but he turned that school around. And at the end, when we now had to appoint a new principal, the staff of Stephen Road didn't want to let him go. You remember that, Mr. Meyer? They just didn't want your father to leave. So he came back to Fairview. On Monday was the first day back for the first time that we now had the whole team back at Aubrey. So on Monday morning, the Aubrey group had a little prayer meeting, and we reflected on your father. So one of our admin officers did a prayer, and every circuit manager and the colleagues spoke about your dad. It was a very therapeutic process for us because it was a difficult day. That door was closed, and all of us had to pass his door, to get to the ladies or to the men's room. And that door was closed. And Rodney, he sits right opposite your dad. And they don't close their doors, they look at each other. And they would talk about whatever's happening, share their good practices. When they're tired, they debrief. And when you walk down that corridor, you would hear the two of them speaking to each other. So for Rodney, it was very difficult, looking at that door. Mr. Philander was the IMG manager from 2010 for Fairview. And he said, whenever he visited the school, it was a pleasure to visit the school, Mr. Meyer. He said, the school, the whole staff, they were so positive. And it was just, the personality of your dad that was just everywhere. Everyone that you would meet, they would smile, they would greet, they would be excited about teaching. So I'm sure the day when you visited for school readiness, everything was sorted, because that is what Fairview was about. Mr. Naidu said, and we spoke about values, because we said that is what Aubrey was about. He was a person with a beautiful personality, and he really lived the value of respect, commitment, dedication, etc. And Mr. Naidu said, the one value that Aubrey really lived, there were many, but the one that stood out was the value of caring. Aubrey would help anyone who needed help. Anyone. Anyone, if you had a need, you must just mention it to Aubrey and you would be there to help. And that is the reason why this school became a full service school and an inclusive school. Aubrey cared for the most vulnerable. This school has always been a beacon of hope in the Grassy Park area. The parents loved him. When it's Ramadan, you would know it's Ramadan. When it's Eid, you know, the imams, the priests in the area, they all were part of the school. Terence said he was such a positive person, inspiring. And there's something else that Terence also did, and I'm going to tell you about that after the meeting. Terence taught your dad how to swim. After, if you visited the school, that was now really, really very difficult, You'd come into the office and you would just walk and pop in. But it was just one word. But they only swore in front of Terence. I'm sure he didn't swear at home. But I'll tell you what the word is later. So when he joined us as a circuit manager, as we have representatives of the various circuits here, and I'm sure the principals will agree with me, he made an impact wherever he worked. The principals loved him. I received hundreds of messages talking about the kind of person he was, respectful, supportive. Really, it was, I've shared some with Isabel, and I think she will share it with your mom. It was just, the response was just amazing. Colleagues, someone mentioned this quote, Miss Quincy Adams. And it says, when your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, you are a leader. That is what Aubrey was. Aubrey personified this quote. Wherever he was, wherever he went, he inspired. He supported. He was a great leader. So today we want to thank the Almighty, firstly, for blessing us with Aubrey. We want to thank you, your mom, your sister and your brother, and the grandchildren for sharing your dad with us. May the beautiful memories we have of him sustain all of us, and the legacy he left, may that inspire all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faldila, for sharing that, sharing your memories with him. But please note that you mustn't let out all of our secrets. There are some memories that should not be shared. Okay, it's our memories. So before I call on the next speaker, I also an oversight on my part. I wish to also acknowledge Gino Overmeyer. He's the nephew of Trevor, and he's also present in the house. So we do appreciate your presence. Thank you very much for coming us and taking some time out to be with us as we share our thoughts and memories with him. The next person that I need to call on is the current principal of Fairview Primary, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Meyer, I met when he was the deputy principal, and I don't think Aubrey was here at the time. We had a meeting here, and I could already see that when Aubrey came to the district, there was no doubt that Mr. Meyer would take over this particular institution, and nothing has changed. There might have been a few new additions, in terms of innovations, etc. But Mr. Meyer, can I call you to the podium? Thank you. And I know you've engaged with Mr. De Wet on numerous occasions, obviously. Yeah, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the school governing body, the staff, the learners, and the greater community of Fairview, I hereby wish to express our sincerest condolences to the families of Mr. Francke and Mr. Aubrey de Wet. It is an honor for me to present this tribute in honor of Mr. de Wet. Mr. de Wet arrived at Fairview in 1985. He was the phys ed teacher. I started 3 years later, and he took me under his wing as the second phys ed teacher. Mr. de Wet left the very next year, just taught me for 1 year. The very next year he left and he became the head of department at Stephen Road Primary, where he stayed from 1989 to 1994. He returned to Fairview in 1995 as our deputy principal. In 2006, he was seconded to the Cape Teaching Leadership Institute in Kuils River for a few months. As the coordinator of the school management program, he was responsible for coordinating the training and development of all teachers and aspiring leaders in management and leadership positions. He became principal in 2009. He was a servant leader. He was involved in every facet of school life at Fairview. In fact, he was Mr. Fairview. Not too long ago, I recall that he even offered to coach breakdancing. He lived and breathed Fairview. He worked long hours. He believed that you don't keep work for tomorrow when it can be done today. During the weekend, you could find him trying to fix the network of the computer lab, drilling holes in the walls in order to put up curtaining rods, have green shoots lessons with grade 3s on a Saturday morning, preparing notes for upcoming staff development sessions, having javelin practice sessions on the soccer field with athletes, even high school athletes. And so the list of his involvement goes on and on. He was a dynamo, always busy, always helping, always putting the school and others ahead of his own needs. Mr. de Wet wasn't shy to ask parents, WCE officials and business people whatever he thought they could offer the school. Whether it was a request for a fan, a laptop, reading books, or any other even outrageous request. He believed in sharing. He loved the saying that people don't care how much you know, but rather they want to know how much you care. He encouraged teachers to study further, to become lifelong learners. He spoke about his desire to do his master's one day. He has gone better. He is in the master's hand today. Mr. de Wet had a passion for inclusive education. On the playground, he even knew every child by name. He had a passion for IT. He was an MS Pol coordinator and facilitator. He had a passion for sport. He served on the Western Province Schools Athletics Executive and later on the District Schools Sports Council as well. Despite working all the time, he made time for his family, time to watch Man United's matches, and his rugby team of choice was not the Springboks, it was the All Blacks. When Mr. de Wet left in 2018, he worked for Metropole South as a circuit manager. I would receive calls from principals requesting various kinds of assistance and sometimes very specific articles or goods. Why? Because Mr. de Wet said, I must give you a call. The passing of Mr. de Wet is not only a loss to Fairview Primary, but also to the church community of Fairways and Parkwood, a loss to Western Province School Sport, and an even greater loss to the Metropole South Education District. Bob Marley said, and with this I close, Bob Marley said, the greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. Mr. De Wet, we thank you for the beautiful and wonderful memories. Farewell until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can attest to his passion. As Valdila mentioned, his door was right opposite mine. And other than the discussions we had about our schools, we would have a friendly banter and teasing about his other passion, Man United. I'm a Liverpool supporter, and he's a Man United, so we were in endless conflict. And also about his rugby team. I support the Springboks, and he supports the All Blacks. And we were definitely banters and teasing about that. And he was very knowledgeable in what those teams were doing, both the, but he wouldn't argue vehemently, not like I would. Be very passionate about it, etc. So that brought some memories. I call on the next speaker, the next person to give tribute. And I haven't engaged with Mr. Claassen very much, except maybe perhaps during the T2P era or time. But I met Mr. Claassen and Mr. De Wet on the odd occasion at the gym. I, at the time, used to go fairly regularly. And I say odd occasion because Aubrey would come to gym. And I would see him there, and maybe 3 weeks later I'd see him there again. Mr. Claassen, who was the neighbor, I also met there. He was a bit more regular at the time. There was a period where Mr. Claassen was very regular. He was there on a daily basis. I don't know, I haven't seen him there. I think he might have given that up. He looks fairly trim, etc. He might have found some other exercise activities. But Mr. Claassen is also very passionate about his school, and they formed a bond here between the two schools, the neighboring schools, and I know there were a number of engagements which I won't expand on. I will allow Mr. Claassen to do that. Mr. Claassen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Permanent Director, for letting the cat out of the bag. Thanks for the compliment. I was just sitting there and thinking, you know, why is it that at a funeral ceremony you always hear the best out of people? We don't actually tell the people when they are alive. And I made a promise to myself, one of my resolutions I wrote down there, the people that had an impact on my life, I need to go around, those ones who are still alive, I need to go around and I need to go and thank them for making a difference in my life. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be appropriate, and I'm sure the families would agree with me, that we put two halos around these guys, because we just heard so many good things about them. So for me it's about, and sorry, all protocol observed, if I may say so, and welcome to the De Wet and Francke family. And I think it's fitting for us to reflect and celebrate the lives of Aubrey and Trevor. Aubrey, and again on the chats, the principal's chats, there were so many things that were said, and you just corroborated. So sometimes you hear something about somebody and you think, maybe it's a once-off thing. But if you hear the same thing continuously from different people at different times, then there must be some truth in it. And so you will hear exactly the same stuff that was spoken about earlier on. He was a person of good character and one to emulate his passion that he had for education and making a difference in children's lives. And very importantly, the positions that they held never defined him as a person. He was always humble and always approachable, never arrogant, and always in his calm way with his wry smile. He would offer some advice or problem solve. He was a gentleman, and his input at meetings, as you've heard, was always considered and very inspiring. I can't recall him raising problems or complaining or losing his cool. Maybe the staff and the family can attest differently, but I haven't experienced that, as you heard from the other speakers as well. He was a true educator at heart and a visionary leader. Our paths crossed when my son joined the school here, and he was the phys teacher. and also the athletics master. But again, and I thought it was just because of the relationship that I had with Aubrey, that he always followed my son's path through high school. When we met, either at Checkers or at the Hyper, with his lovely wife, we would chat and ask me, how's Justin doing? And is he still at the particular school? And he's gone to university, how's he doing at university? And then later on he got married, how's the grandchildren, how's his children doing? And I thought it was just because of the relationship, the friendship that we had. But then, whenever we used to read about the children at our school that was at Fairview that were doing well, he would pick up the phone, or he would read about it in the community papers, or hear about it, he would pick up the phone, and then he would phone me and say, please tell Audrey that I send my regards and congratulations to them. And this is years later, when I had problems in the class with a particular child, the teacher would send the children to the child to the office. At which primary school were you? At Fairview, sir. I think I'll call Mr. DeWitt and tell him what you got up to. Please, sir, don't call Mr. DeWitt. Would be their approach. And that would be the end of that problem, because they knew I had a personal relationship with Mr. DeWitt and anything, and that message spread. So I never had issues with the learners from Fairview. We spoke about the building. Yes, it was a Francke school before, when he was here, and my son came home one Monday morning and he said, one Monday afternoon, and he said, Dad, they broke in by the school and in our classroom as well. So I asked, now, what happened? Did they come through the door? Did they come through the window? He says, no, they came through the wall. No, it had a hardboard on the outside, then Sagex and hardboard on the inside. So instead of coming through the door, through the windows, the guy just kicked a hole in the wall and they got into the classroom that way. So the building, this beautiful building, state-of-the-art building, is a testimony, and as we've heard, a monument to Mr. DeWitt and the work that he's done, and obviously taken further by Mr. Meyer as well. And I'm reminded of an interview by Oprah Winfrey and Angelo Meyer, where Oprah Winfrey, and there's nothing under your seats in case you're wondering, but Oprah was interviewing her, Maya Angelou, and Maya Angelou, in a normal way, turned the interview around, and she asked Oprah, what do you think would be your legacy? And Aubrey said, the school that I built for girls in Johannesburg in South Africa, I think that would be my legacy. And Maya Angelou said, no, that's not your legacy. Your legacy is the number of lives that you have touched through the school and obviously interacting with people. That would be your legacy. Not the buildings, not the things, but the lives that you've touched. And so when I look at the school and I think of Aubrey, it's his legacy that he's left behind, but also the lives that he has touched, the lives that he has changed, especially in our learners, that he was so passionate about. So Aubrey's legacy is not so much what he did, but how he did it, as we've heard, and the many lives that he touched and changed. He was a sharing, caring individual, always willing to assist with advice, workshops. We heard about athletics, without being pushy or self-centered or even arrogant. As I said, position and title never defined him. He was a true educator and a visionary leader. I always thought that he would make a great job as a circuit manager, and it was a good choice, Mr. Meyer, director and ma'am. It was a good choice because his experience that he had built up at the school, as well as at CTLI, stood him in good stead. And therefore he could always offer suggestions, have those templates, have their readings, and make a difference in our lives. And this was so true in the circuits that we served together with Mr. Strip. We used to stand in for Mr. Esthuizen, we used to meet there, and then after that with Mrs. Chotia, as she mentioned. And Mrs. Chotia had this habit of playing the one school up against the other, the rivalry amongst us. Whether it was literacy and numeracy results or whether it was the athletics. And so Mr. Meyer's thing was always that, Mr. DeWitt's thing was always that he's always playing second fiddle to Mr. Meyer at Plantation. They always coming second. And so when our school was built and we had our fields were done, he came over and he said, man, I need to put a stop to this coming second. So can I use your field for practices? And he used to march the children 2 by 2 over the road, and they used to come and practice there at our school with his whiteboard, in his white pants, and he used to make his notes and oversee the whole process. So that year they won plantation, and it was just great. And since then it has continued, and that legacy continues. Mr. Ishmael that's here, he still does exactly the same thing, and that passion as Mr. Mayer, the principal, and Mr. Ishmael embodies that as well as what they've learned from him. And the extramurals, I mean, the students, ex-students would also phone me and say, they were reminded of the trips to Oudtshoorn, they were reminded of the trips to along the garden route. And one said, sir, please mention this, that he promised to take us to France. I don't know where that came from, but the teacher will probably, the ex-teacher will probably know about it. He had promised that he was going to take some of the students to France. So it was that kind of thing. His passion was there always. Whether it was, and athletics was a major part of his life. And it's through that he connected with children and he made a difference. Whether it was locally, regionally, or provincially, as we've heard. So, you know, it's just to confirm what you've heard from the other previous speakers, that is the type of person that your dad was, that his legacy will be felt for years to come. And what he has left behind, we will take, promise you guys, we will take that forward. COVID has robbed us of a true educator, a life cut short too soon. He has still so much to offer. His passing is a great loss to his family and to his friends, the colleagues that we have here, and the greater Grassy Park community, as you've heard. He was very instrumental in the local principals forum, our Grassy Park forum. We again used to offer his own expertise, his own knowledge and wisdom that he had, but also that of his school. The foundation phase, senior teachers, the head of departments, and the intermediate phase people, they were roped in, unbeknown to them at our meetings, to share their lesson plans, to share how they dealt with issues of literacy and numeracy. He used to hold workshops with us. I remember with Mrs. Jafter, when we had our discussion on strategic planning before Transform to Perform. We had Mr. DeWitt do a workshop with us. At that point in time, he said, if you have the value, let's say, respect, what does it look like? What does it sound like for the child? What does it look like for the teacher? And sound like from the teacher to show respect? What does it sound like for the parent to show respect? And that was before Transform to Perform. He was already embodying those values and inculcating those values. And one of the sayings says that, you know, education is what you have forgotten, what was taught to you at school. That stuff that remains, that's the education. And that's the character building that he had and that he shared with us. Another truth that I think we also need to embody is what I was reminded of, just thinking of Aubrey. When we lose someone we love, we must learn not to live without them, but to live with the love, and in Aubrey's case, the legacy that they left behind. May God grant us all the strength and peace to deal with our loss, because it definitely is a loss to us, and personally and to education. Let's continue to keep the family and friends and our colleagues in prayer. Farewell, Aubrey, colleague and friend. Till we meet again, may you rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Claassen. Before we come to the next item on the program, I'd just like to echo the sentiments of all the previous speakers about Aubrey and my experience, and in terms of his work ethic and his helpfulness. I think it was Mrs. Chakia that mentioned that you might just have to mention it and, you know, he'd offer. Well, I sat right opposite him. I also would just make use of that, and I cheated. Because sometimes I wouldn't want to do my own research on the WCED website. So I think aloud and say, I wonder what and how, where do I get this information? And I know 2 minutes later, he would come up and say, yeah, here's the information. So I didn't bother. I don't know who's going to do that for me now. I'll probably have to do my own research. So yes, he will be sorely missed. I will definitely miss him. I don't know what I'm going to shout across. I think we mentioned it, Diana mentioned it yesterday. Aubrey was always the helpful one, always this calm demeanor, coming up with a solution. I don't know who I'm going to moan and bitch at this time when I come from school, because I let her up and across the hall, and he would come up and I don't know who I'm going to be able to do that with now. Mr. Claassen tried to find something that wasn't good to say about him, but he couldn't. There's one thing, and Fadila let the cat out of the bag. There's one thing that we could say is that one swear word that used. I was also present there, Terry and I. So that is about the only thing that I can think of. We have on the program a musical item by the violinist, Miss C. Sauls, and she'll be accompanied by the keyboard or the pianist, Chesley. Okay? Thank you. I do think that it is well with our soul. Yeah. I call on, Mr. Clinton Walker sends his apologies and is unable to be here, but to represent him is Christel Barkhuizen, who is the Chief Education Specialist for e-learning, for the e-learning Directorate of the Western Cape Education Department. Her role is to manage and oversee the planning, coordination and implementation of the e-learning in the province. She plays a pivotal role to collaborate across directorates and districts with the ability to facilitating challenging and foreign concepts to others in an easy to grasp manner. I call on Christelle Barkhuizen.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director and honored guests. On behalf of our e-learning directorate, our director Clinton Walker, and all our e-learning colleagues, I would like to give tribute to Trevor Francke, our dear friend and colleague. Trevor always saw himself in service of others. He was humble, always removing himself from the center of attention. In our engagements on provincial level, sometimes, often colour would rush to his face if mention was made of him in glorifying ways. And then that shy smile when he noticed that you were looking at him. His kind words when he often inquired, "How are you doing?" And then actually, I listened to your reply. Such a compassionate, gentle and beautiful soul. Loss and sadness in his passing hit his district, extended team and school colleagues unexpectedly and too soon, the ripples of which will be extended for a long time, as it should be. Trevor would be the first one to emphasize that he is in plain sight. He is here with us. Though in peace, he is forever present in what remains part of his great contribution towards caring for our young minds. We are asked to use our grief to live life to the fullest and to find dearest Trevor, Francke, and Aubrey the vet, and countless others in our daily lives. I was fortunate to become part of a small period with the e-learning game changer roadmap with Fairview Primary. The very first day I met Mr. De Vet, Trevor was the representative from the district that came with me to the school. That day I could see the respect that both gentlemen portrayed towards myself, towards the department, as well as towards the teachers and learners in the school. When I left the school that day, I was thinking, wow, what a wonderful, friendly principal of Fairview Primary. And with my esteemed colleague, Trevor. When I left the office, they left with me. Trevor decided to turn back and come back into the office. I was driving out of the schoolyard and I was thinking, and the whole conversation played in my mind. And I was thinking, Christelle, were you here to present the e-vision to the school and the game changer roadmap for the model school? Or was it Mr. De Vet that already said, yes, we are going to do whatever needs to be done to make Fairview the best school of the province? And yes, I must say, he did, with the help of Metro South District and our esteemed colleague, Trevor. So I need to repeat myself. We are asked to use our grief to live life to the fullest and to find dearest Trevor and Aubrey and countless others in our daily life. Best worded by the poet Mary Elizabeth Frey in her poem, "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep," which reads, "Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. And this, with respect and admiration from our e-learning friends and colleagues, are our contribute to you, Trevor, and to Aubrey, and all the other loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barkhuizen. There is a saying that says, if you say you are humble, you immediately cease to be humble. Trevor would never utter those words, I am humble. He lived his humbleness. And he will be sorely, sorely missed. The gentleman that he was, the skills that he had, and I know that I will have to find another person now to visit my schools and to promote the e-learning philosophies and concepts that he started. It's going to be a difficult shoes to fill. As I said, Mr. Osman Sadek apologized. So Osman, just for those of you that he's I said that he's the epitome of the lifelong learning. He is a Metro South boychi. He's a pioneer and was one of the first subject advisors. And he took up the head of e-learning at head office in 2007. He returned back to Metro South, Deep South, in 2014, where he mentored a very, very enthusiastic Trevor Francke. He took early retirement in 2016, and we will have Shemaine that will share his message with us.
Thank you, Rodney. Good morning, colleagues. All protocols are observed. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here to honor our colleagues, to the family of Aubrey and Trevor, Gino. I know it's been a terrible time for you. Thank you for the support that you've been giving Kathy, Trevor's wife. The message that I want to give to you from the curriculum component this morning is in Mfundo House. Once you set foot in that building, you become family. Trevor will always be a family member of the curriculum component. So no matter what happens, if the family needs their extended family members, we will be there. Please take us up on that offer. And that offer is made to the family of Aubrey as well. We have the privilege of working with Aubrey both as a principal and as a circuit manager. And he was a fresh breeze when he came into the DMT. the district management team. Aubrey and I share two loves, IT or ICT, integration of IT, and of course the Olympics. And then today I heard that he also supported, I didn't know this, Manchester United. He was a good person. Colleagues, yes, Ozzy is very, very sad that he cannot be here today. So I hope that I will be able to do justice when I read his message. I don't know if it's an e-learning thing, but they tend to want to nail down everything. Step by step, everything must be done perfectly, to the extent that Ozzy in his speech has indicated where I should pause and where I should chuckle. I love that for our colleagues. We come to honor Trevor. Pause. When we know that there are no more tomorrows for us with Trevor physically, we remember the days that we had. The silence is eerie. But if you listen, you will hear through the silence Trevor's voice, and in your mind's eye, you will see that smile with that distinct glint in his eye. At a remembrance such as this, light is shed on two aspects: who the person was and what and how the living can benefit from being associated with the departed. He was a good person, a nice person. But what does good and nice really mean when we think about Trevor? The attributes that we experienced. Let me put it to you through alternative expressions to mentally remind you of that side of Trevor that you experienced. Kind, quiet, soft, unassuming, gentle, decent, respectable, moral, upright, worthy, principled. I've had the honor to work with Trevor for many years as a manager when I was at head office, and as fate would have it, I got to spend my last 3 years in education working alongside Trevor as a colleague when I joined Metro South Education District again. I recollect from Trevor the reminder of life's lesson. Each of us has a purpose in this world, which comes with roles and responsibilities. We do the best we can. And I can unequivocally state Trevor always did the best he could. I recall with fondness, he once said, "I appreciate you trying to develop me in many things, but just tell me what to do and I'll get it done." And he did just that. He worked at whatever was necessary so as to achieve success. But he was never, to my knowledge, shy to say if he could not, and that shows integrity, honesty, courage to say, I'd like to do this, but I can't. So let's see what else I can do, or how we can do it differently. I remember Trevor patiently explaining to me certain things when first I invited him to my home for Eid or for my birthday. I understood and I respected his resolute beliefs. Trevor was kind and helpful. He was willing to help if he could. I remember when I was still at head office, I sought him out to help me to do a task, as he had that particular talent. And as always, he showed his willingness to assist. He also assisted me personally. He was a critical, in a quiet moment, said to me, "I now understand, Ozzy, that e-learning is so much more than just putting technology in schools." So who was Trevor? A really great person who will be sadly missed, but remembered always. And what do we learn from Trevor? We can all do what we can to make a difference in the lives of people around us in different ways. As he shared with us shortly before his passing, I read to you Philippians 4, verses 5 to 6, verse 5. Let your gentleness be evident to all. Farewell, dear friend. With love and appreciation, Ozzy. Can I, since can I carry on?
Protocols, we must be finished by 12. I'm just...
But there is a slot for
No,
the
it's
for
fine.
the curriculum.
Yeah.
Colleagues, from my side, everything that could be said about the contribution that Trevor has made to education in Metro South, Education District, and also much wider than that has been said. I stand here comfortable in the knowledge that Trevor knew, because as a component, we value each other and we share with each other our admiration for each other. I loved to tease Trevor, to see those pink cheeks. And I will miss that the most. At the end of the day, it's not really for me, and you would find this very strange. I'm the head of curriculum. The curriculum must be the most important thing to the curriculum component. It isn't. It is not. The person is. And that is what I will cling to. In my words to my colleagues, when we first got together after the passing of Trevor, and also after the passing of Tyron, my words were, let us take from their characters the best ones, and let us keep them alive by living those characteristics. And we will do that. I would like to give the e-learning team, in the form of PJ, the opportunity to share something briefly from this. I stand with you. We just like you.
Good day, colleagues. So the messages that I'm going to be reading is from the e-learning team in Metro South. It's my fellow colleague Dion, Annalisa, myself, Zizi, the new intern, and also Namshla, the new intern. So from Dion, the message is, Trevor was a wonderful colleague and a friend who truly understood the meaning of the word team. He was always more focused on the good of the company and the department than on doing things for his own benefit. He made many great contributions to Metro South and helped it move forward in numerous ways. His work here will not be forgotten soon. And to Kathy and to you, sir, to Kathy, your husband was a highly valuable and respected member of our team, and the effects of his passing are already being felt here by our e-learning unit, fellow colleagues and management. Trevor, because of his protective nature, he earned the nickname Papa Bear amongst us. He was someone who constantly looked out for others, always treated the colleagues with the utmost love and care. My colleague Annalisa wrote, Trevor, your passing has broken our hearts into pieces. We were not ready to say goodbye to you, especially in this painful way. Remembering my first day as an intern in 2016 at Metro South, you were the first person who welcomed us. Your advice on how we had to conduct ourselves as young people, how to behave amongst other colleagues, and how to learn to not easily take offense, but to use our shortcomings to grow in strength, will remain with me forever. You had your unique way of dealing with our differences in the team and at the office at large. Whenever our spirits and souls needed a lift, or whenever we needed someone cheering us up, you were the person that we ran to. Thank you for playing the role of a parent in my life, always being more than just a colleague. There are so many sacrifices that you made to accommodate me as a young person who looked up to you. This is a message from myself. So I will always remember you, Trevor, as a friend and a colleague, and someone who shared the skills and knowledge with the team and with others, someone who took on many responsibilities on behalf of the team. I'll remember your quirky manners, your laugh and huge smile. I will remember how you always found a way to stay in your shirt when you were eating. I will miss you. Zizi Pele wrote, writing this is one of the hardest things I've ever done, because when you speak about a person who has made an impact in your life, you have a fear of leaving something out. That's very important. Mr. Francke was one of the first people I met at the office when I arrived. When I met him, I knew I was going to be the youngest person at the office. He made me feel welcome, he made me coffee and introduced me to everyone. During lunch, you would hear him laughing in the kitchen. The one thing I always joked about with my other colleagues is the way he spoke. He had such a good command of the English language. I always thought to myself, I hope I'm not the only one who didn't understand what he meant. Namsla. This is our new intern. Mr. Francke will be missed at the office. Mr. Francke, that's how I called him, although they wanted me to call them, Trevor and Dion, by their first names. But I could not because of my culture. It doesn't allow me to do that. All of us will miss you dearly, and our deepest sympathy and condolences to you, Kathy, and the family. Thank you.
Thank you, PJ. I've been reminded by the organizer that as per COVID protocols, we need to vacate the hall by 12 o'clock. So we are at our final speaker. And we call on Thandi Jafter, who they must extend the hours for the minutes we take for the sanitizing, etc. But we'll make it. Thandi Jafter joined the department or MSET in in 1997. It feels very strange to say somebody started in the 90s. No, now it's just 20 odd years later. She, as I said, she joined in 1997 and became a circuit team manager in 2008. And then again in 2014, when we restructured, she became the circuit manager. And during that time, a path crossed with Trevor and with Aubrey on numerous occasions. And we call on Thandi just to say, pay tribute. Okay.
I don't have a watch. I don't know whether it's still a good morning. I want to greet Mr. Mayor, Chief Director, our Director, our Circuit Managers, Head Curriculum, and the Head of other components that are in, our principals, our distinguished guests, and a special greetings to the family of Mr. Aubrey and Trevor Francke. I am not going to pay tribute to our two colleagues. I think the other speakers have paid a very touching, moving, beautiful tribute to the two colleagues, although, as Mr. Tace mentioned, that I have crossed the path of the two colleagues very closely, dearly, as my colleagues, but more than that, as friends and my brothers. I am asked to pay tribute to our dear colleagues, as you've seen up there on the stage, the names of our teachers, our principals, who passed away due to COVID. But before I go there, allow me to leave the message of condolences to the two families by quoting from the Bible. The book of Revelations 24 verse 4 says, "And God shall wipe away all their tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, and neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed." And these were the words that Aubrey and Trevor were going to say if they were on this podium. Colleagues, today we are here to celebrate and honor and say farewell to our fellow teachers, non-teaching staff, deputy principals and principals who passed away, our colleagues who sacrificed their time, their family time, who worked tirelessly 24 hours. As our speakers mentioned, how Aubrey stayed at school for the whole day, Saturdays, and that was what our colleagues, whose name were flying up there, were doing at their schools. They worked hard to teach our learners and lead our institutions with excellence. These young men and women, and not so young men and women, allow me, I don't want to use the word old, they took the teaching profession very, very seriously. At the time some of them started teaching, it was not paying enough. And then some of them taught under very difficult conditions to mold our learners, our future. Teaching is a noble profession. Some would say it is the mother of all professions, and that is true. As the president of this country was once in the class of a teacher, a judge, a top judge in the highest high court in Pretoria, was once in the class of a teacher. Teachers work with the most precious material, the mind of a learner. I like the SG's tweet, which acknowledged an article that was written about remarkable teachers. And this article said, I quote, "These are the people who taught the lesson, the same lesson, twice or even 3 times a day, so that each group they taught, it could be safely small." And this is during the time of COVID. Allow me to say, I think some of them taught even more than 3 times, as they were dealing with learners that needed more time. These teachers that we honor today are the remarkable teachers that this article refers to. This article describes the greatness of the work and the task done by these colleagues as they did it with love, passion, and patience. When they exercised discipline, they did it with sternness, yet with love, because they saw these learners not as just stats, but they treated them as their own children. As I've often heard some of these colleagues calling them their own children. As most teachers do, even today. Remember my days as a teacher, I also refer to them as my children. Amidst all admin overload, sometimes frustrations from the employer, late payment of salaries or delayed salaries, anxiety through the pandemic, they soldiered on. Some of the colleagues ensured safety of our learners and safety of staff during pandemic. They worked hard to ensure that all our classrooms are cleaned and sanitized every day. They screened the learners every day, and they taught learners and make sure that they were wearing masks every day. Deputies and principals were great leaders who were leading before and during the pandemic to ensure that all the WCD guidelines and protocol, especially safety protocols, were followed at all times. Now these colleagues succumbed to COVID, like soldiers who died in the battlefield, like the boxers who died in the ring. They faced the situations while they were anxious, but they stayed fast to deliver quality education with passion, commitment, dedication, and teaching our learners. Their footprints will stay in the passages of their schools and in their communities. Their legacy will remain printed in the lives of our children, who they taught and touched. Let us continue to deliver quality education for every child, in every class, in every school, in the province, in their memory. Go well, colleagues. We salute you. Go well. I thank you.
Thank you, Tandy. Yeah, we've got to remember we have lost so many stalwarts, so many educators, and not only educators, but this pandemic has really taken its toll on us. But we not become clinical and cold about it. We're going to skip the musical item, but I do want to, before I call on Lorraine to say the thanks, I just want to read, and the poet wrote, and I can actually imagine and hearing Trevor and Aubrey reciting this. The cares of the world concern me no longer. I have completed this life. My work is done. The children of my heart grown. My family is well on the journey and happy and healthy in their pursuits. I have loved much and well. To those I leave behind, I hope I will remain in their hearts as they will in mine. Thank you for taking such good care of me. And all of you who have been my friends, thank you for teaching me about life and about love. Go in peace and in blessings for the day. My response to them is, may you go forward with a small flickering of light in your soul. May the memories of your loved ones begin to bring comfort rather than pain. May the words, touch, and presence of others bring solace, and may you be blessed in your coming in and going out. Grateful for a life lived and a legacy left behind. Go in peace. I asked Lorraine, who is a curriculum, the GET coordinator in MSET, to do the thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Program Director Rodney Tace, for navigating us through this full yet touching program. Thank you so much. I wish to acknowledge the Director of Metro South Education District, Mr. Granville Stander, the family of Aubrey de Wet and Trevor Francke, the Chief Director, Mr. Meyer, in absentia, the Director of E-Learning, Mr. Clinton Walker, members of the District Management Team, Ms. Barkhuizen from the E-Learning Directorate, in absentia, Dr. Osman Sadiq, fellow MSED colleagues, principals, and then as per our new normal, it will be remiss if I do not acknowledge all who are attending this memorial service in virtual mode, those based at head office and at districts across the province, principals, school management teams, teachers, and the many interested participants. I have been asked to do the thanks today. This I deem as an honor, and do so with the utmost respect for our colleagues whom I have had the privilege of working with. Today, we stopped to pay tribute to Aubrey and Trevor, who made a difference in the lives of so many, especially, as we have heard, the children. And we have indeed heard the extent of their care and love. So, on behalf of the Director, Mr. Stander, I wish to thank the following persons. A special thank you to the family of Aubrey de Wet and Trevor Francke for being present here today. It means a lot to us that you have made this time to join us on this journey of remembrance. You shared your loved ones with us. And so we could taste their generosity, their active minds, and their anxiousness to please. They made us feel 10 feet tall. It reminds me of what Maya Angelou said. People will forget what you have said. They will even forget all the things you have done, but they will never forget how you made them feel. A huge thank you to the principal, Mr. Meyer, and the staff of Fairview Primary for making the facilities of the school available to us. How fitting is it not to have this occasion right here. Both Aubrey and Trevor loved this school. May their voices cling to the walls and their footprints caress our feet as we walk on through these walkways. We thank the speakers for their tributes rendered and who so eloquently imprinted Trevor and Aubrey's life of service into our minds, our souls, and in our hearts. Thank you to Mr. Alan Meyer, Chief Director, WCD, Ms. Valdila Chotier, Circuit Manager from Metro South, Mr. Meyer, Principal of Fairview Primary, Mr. Claessens, the Principal of Fairmount High School, Ms. Christel Barkhuizen, she represented the e-learning directorate from WCD. Also noting the input from Dr. Osman Sadiq, and thank you Charmaine for so eloquently bringing the message in a way that he would have wanted it to be shared. Thank you so much. And also to you Charmaine, the mother of curriculum, our dear Trevor. You said it all, dear Charmaine. PJ Van Wyk for sharing a message on behalf of the MSET team, the MSET e-learning team in particular. Thank you very, very much. Ms. Tandi Jafta, Circuit Manager, MSET, thank you very much for your heartwarming words for all the colleagues whom we have lost in this pandemic. Just by listening to you, we must have realized that here we have had two colleagues who showed us that work can be love made visible. And if I could summarize, two colleagues who worked for a cause, not for applause, lived life to express, not to impress, raised the level of their words, not their voices, and who didn't strive to make their presence noticed, just their absence felt. And we feel your absence, Trevor and Aubrey, deeply. I'm having goosebumps, colleagues. We thank the violinist, Carmelita Sauls, and the pianist, Cesare Sauls, for their musical contributions. You certainly managed to capture the essence of this tribute through music. Thank you, Mr. Terence Wolf, for the beautiful flowers. This kind gesture is most appreciated. We wish to furthermore thank Levi Niekerk for making the live streaming possible. Thank you, Levi, by providing your equipment and expertise. It's most appreciated. We wish to thank Peter John van Wyk and also Sadiq Williams, based here at Fairview, for your technical support. Thank you to all for sharing this moment with us. We also wish to thank all who forwarded messages of support as shockwaves were felt throughout the district when the news of their passing was made known. Your support in this trying time of healing and understanding is particularly significant. A special thank you to Ms. Isabel Sanossi for coordinating this journey of remembrance, for Aubrey de Wet and Trevor Francke, and to all those who assisted in making the day a lasting memory. Let us carry the inheritance of their great examples forward in our lives. And I wish to end this thanks, this special thanks, by focusing on what I started with, the children, whom Aubrey and Trevor loved so dearly. They never forgot how it felt to be a child. And I think perhaps that is why they were so effective. wish to end off on a true educational note with literacy. From the book, The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Ms. DeWitt and the DeWitt family, please read this to your grandchildren. Ms. Francke and Gino Meyer here present, please read this to Gio Summer. If there ever comes a day, this is from the book, Winnie the Pooh, if there ever, because that is where I will stay forever. I thank you.
Thanks once again for attendance, and thank you, and stay safe, sanitize, mask up, social distance, the three key deliverables that you need to advocate to this. Safe journey back. Thanks.